Today is April the 5th of 2021, and we're here today with Mr. Don Powell. He's running for the Amarillo Board of Trustees. Don, welcome.
Thank you, Dan. Thanks for having me.
Let's start off by telling the voters who you are and where you came from, and then some of your background, and
Sure.
then we'll go into why you're running for the AISD, and then we'll get into that.
I'm a native of Amarillo. That's all I know. I've lived here all my life. I had a stint of about 7 years in Washington, D.C. in the early 2000s, but I'm a product of Amarillo Independent School District. I married my high school sweetheart. We've been married a couple of years. I'm an older guy, but I love her more today than I loved her then. And I went to Forest Hill Elementary School, Horseman Junior High, we called it junior high then, and Powell High School, and then went to West Texas A&M University. I was in the banking business for most of my life, left in about 2001 to go to Washington to serve our country as with the FDIC. I was an appointee of then President Bush and stayed there about 6-7 years, came back home, and I'm here now, and it's home, and I love being in Amarillo.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
So you grew up in Amarillo and was chairman of the FDIC, and then you've also served as on the Board of Regents of Texas A&M. Is that right?
That's right. I was privileged to serve on the Board of Regents at Texas A&M, and I was privileged to serve as chairman for 4 years.
And you were also served on the Amarillo College Board of Regents.
I was on the Amarillo College board. That was a fun time for 16 years during some wonderful, exciting times.
So I guess you'd go without saying that you think you have the experience to be on the board.
I think, I've had many life's experience. Part of it's because of my age. Part of it's because of some things I've been able to do. But serving on the Amarillo College Board of Regents, I learned things such as open meeting laws and learned about where the money comes from, complicated budgets, understood student needs, understood faculty needs. The same thing was true at A&M. A&M was a huge, very large system. There's something like 80,000 students at the flagship, and then there's another 80,000 or plus more within the system. So it's very complex, huge budget, complicated issues. I'm sad to say that the bonfire occurred when I was serving as a regent, which was very challenging, very emotional, it was just a tough time. And so I learned some things from that. I learned things at the Amarillo College Board of Regents. I was privileged, and the A&M Board of Regents, privileged to serve with some outstanding regents that taught me a lot. They added a lot of value. I learned from them. I learned from administrators. I learned from faculty. I learned from distinguished faculty members from all walks of life. And then the banking business gave me lots of insight as to human nature and people and governance. It was really important, and the same thing was true with my service serving the American people at the FDIC. You interact with Congress, you interact with lots of people from different views, and so I've been blessed to have a wealth of experience.
So now you've chosen to run for the Amarillo Board of Trustees, AISD. How do you plan on taking the experience that you've gained and the knowledge and the education you've received in all these other positions to benefit our local schools?
Yeah, first of all, I'm going to learn some things. I'm going to ask a lot of questions, and I'm going to listen. Each thing is unique and different because I think there are some things that I may have thought were the facts, and they're not the facts, especially as it relates to the revenue stream. But I'm going to listen a lot, and I'm learning now a lot. But there's some fundamental things that are true in any governance issue. First of all, you need to have good governance. You need to respect everybody. You need to understand everybody's view. You need to listen to constituents. The taxpayers are really that's who I report to ultimately, are the taxpayers. They elect me, so I have a sense of responsibility to them. So I'm going to do a lot of listening. But I'm going to take the experience that I've had under complicated issues and apply those to whatever may be happening or occurring at the school district.
What are some of the main issues you think that the AISD is facing?
Yeah, I think there's always budget issues, Dan, and there's always budget issues. And due to COVID, we've had lots of students that have dropped out for one reason or another. So, as you know, that funding is per student, and if you lose 2,000 students, that you got a budget crunch. So, part of my training has been understanding, because I've lived in budget crunches. I've lived on where resources are not always there. So you look at expenditures, you got to be resourceful. You got to understand how you can do something better and maybe with less funds. So I think that is a challenge about the students, but more important, at the heart of that thing, we need to find out why those students are not there. Why are they not coming back? How do we reach out to them? How do we encourage their parents, whoever is responsible for those students, to make sure that they get back into the school system? That's really more important, very frankly, than the finances. I mean, the finances are important, very important, but we got to get those students back into the classroom. I think that's one issue. I think the second issue is always retaining and recruiting the very best faculty. So what do faculty need? What do they want? Respecting faculty is really important. Understanding faculty. I've said it. You've heard me say it. The thing that would distinguish the Amarillo Independent School System is not, very frankly, not our property, not our plant, not our equipment, not even technology. It's the classroom teacher and administrators. Who's got the best teachers? That's really important. So we need to make sure that we have a culture where we retain and we attract the very best teachers. At the same time, understanding the students' needs. I mean, parents are really, it's important that we maintain safety for students, number one, obviously, but then those students need to learn arithmetic, reading, writing, arithmetic, just like I did. We want them to be productive citizens when they graduate from any high school, including Powell High School, my alma mater, within Amarillo Independent System. They need to take their education and become productive, tax-paying entrepreneurs, whatever they choose to be, whether it's an electrician or whether it's an engineer, whatever it may be. We need to equip them to be productive. That's really important. And then we need to obviously support administrators, understand what their issues are, what they never, but I'm focused on students, teachers, and taxpayers.
Well, those are all kind of go hand in hand.
That's right.
The students become the taxpayers.
That's
and
right.
They become parents.
That's right.
So we want to create responsible
That's right.
citizens.
That's right.
And I think most of our problems stem from the fact that we have a certain segment of our society that's not responsible. So it really is the parents at the end of the day. But we have to realize we have to work with what we have and hopefully create people that are more responsible in the future.
Well said. So that's that's within that definition of productive. We want them to be not only productive citizens, but we want them to be responsible citizens. But Dan, that gets back to education. Yeah. That gets back to the core of education. I mean, if most people that are successful in life have a basic understanding of education, not everybody needs to go to college, but they have a core fundamental of education. Part of that education is being responsible citizens, understanding that all the quality of life issues, every one of the quality of life issues relate to education. Mm-hmm. Economics, criminal justice, the arts, education, all those go right back to education.
Right. It's probably the most, well, I tell people, I think that the school board is probably the most important elected position in America.
You know, Dan, that's very tempting for me to respond to that because all elected officials are important. I will say I respect every elected official. You know, once you become an elected official, really you put yourself at risk. You expose yourself, you expose your family, but the rewards are also very good. But fundamentally, down deep inside, it all starts with education. That's not to say, I mean, our elected officials to the state legislature, to the federal government are critical. But there's just a core education issue, and that's the reason you got to work. And that's another issue that I think my experience would add value. You need to understand the legislative process. You need to understand what happens in the state legislature, what happens in the federal government, because as you know, the revenue stream comes from the state and it comes from the federal government. So that's the reason that as a trustee, understanding collectively what our agendas or what our issues are, someone's got to go down and talk to the elected officials. I've done that all in Washington. I had to advocate for the FDIC. Sometimes they liked it, sometimes they didn't. But there wasn't any question. And there's not any question that I will be an advocate for the Amarillo Independent School District, whether we a collective agree. But someone has to go down and tell that message. Someone needs to understand the legislative process. I do, but not because I've had experience in doing that. So that's a key component.
Well, that's good. I think it was it Ben Franklin that said something about education? What was that quote that he had?
It'll come to me in a minute, but I know that the founding fathers of Texas were very adamant about public education.
Well, I think, overall, from just doing what we're doing now and starting to talk to the candidates about the school board and looking into the Amarillo School District a little bit more and becoming more familiar with it, we're not too bad off. I mean, I think we have a pretty good school system here. I think everything can be improved.
Yeah.
But overall, I don't think we have the problems that they have in some of the other parts of the state.
I think you're right. I think it's because, if nothing else, because our people are engaged, our community's engaged, our taxpayers engaged, and I think the administrators understand what the public wants. But at the core of it, man, it's the classroom teacher.
Yep.
And so he or she is really important. And one thing in my thinking about all this stuff, I want the classroom teacher to be happy. I don't want them to have to go to the next leg to be an administrator in order to get more money or more funds or whatever it may be, because the administrators are vitally important to the whole structure. But the classroom teacher is where the jewels are.
Well, it used to be people really looked up to teachers, and I think they still do.
I still do.
Yeah. Yeah, I do too. And to me, it's
they're heroes.
Very unique skill set that they possess to be able to do that job that most of us wouldn't have the capacity to do.
They have to be psychiatrists. They have to have skill in communicating. They have to be able to motivate kids, and they've got to know their subject matter. So they got to know the subject matter, and they need to look at ways. And what's amazing about this, every youngster, every individual pupil is different. So what they've got to be able to, if they're trying to teach someone arithmetic, this student may get it real quickly. This one may be a little bit slower. So what do they change? They've got to it's overwhelming and complex what these classroom teachers have to do. They're committed to it. It's a calling. Most of them, it's a calling.
Yeah. Well, I certainly look up to them.
I do too.
Is there any other things that you want to express to the voters about why they should choose you over your opponents?
Well, I think there's some wonderful people running for these slots. I just want to serve. I just want to serve. I'm at the point in my life that I've always had somewhat of a servant heart, but this one is really special. There's nothing more I would want to do than to make sure that we're educating responsible, productive young men and young women to be citizens, and hopefully they'll stay right in this community. They're going to be the leaders of tomorrow. So we've got to make sure that we have a great education system.
Can we make sure they vote?
I don't know. That's a complex deal. I mean, I've been fighting that all my life. I mean, I don't know why people are not. I mean, one of the fundamental things that makes America great is pauper sovereignty. My vote is just as equal as yours. And at a voting booth, everybody's the same. Mm-hmm. Boy, we should cherish that. And one way to cherish that is to exercise your privilege by voting. I would just encourage all your voters to not only vote in this school election, but in every election. It's critical to our democracy.
I think people are starting to wake up and realize that it's local that matters.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody, all elected officials matter, but what their vote on the local level is so much more powerful. It's like 70,000 times
It affects
more
them day by
potent.
day. You're right.
Yeah.
I can go touch and see it. I can tell you about a building, but if I drive by this building every day, I don't have to guess what it's like.
Right. So it's so critical, and I'm thinking about going to the high schools and say, can we put on a presentation on how the system works, the party system, so they understand it? Because I don't think a lot of people even know that it exists.
And that's part of education.
Yep.
That's education.
That's right. And so that's what we're trying to do is educate the voters.
Right.
That's why we're doing this, because we
Absolutely.
want
Well,
to educate the voters.
I applaud you for this. I applaud you for this, for being transparent, for being forthright, and let the voters, make their decision. I would hope also, I would tell your viewers that if they have any questions, my number is 703-608-5941.
Do you have a website or anything?
We have a website. So it's easy to find. It's Don Powell, for Don Powell. And it's a website's easy to pick up on. There's an opportunity there to ask a question. I promise you we'll respond.
So it's for Don Powell?
It's for Don Powell.
The FOUR or just the letter?
Four.
Or the number?
4, I think it is. I must tell you that that's a great question. It's for Don. I'll let you know. I know it's for Don Powell. I've looked at it. I'll just see if there's questions.
Well, if they Google it, it should show
If they
up.
Google it, they'll find it. Yeah.
All right. Well, Don, we really appreciate you coming by.
Thank you, Dan.
And good luck.
Thank you for doing this. Thank you.